Hi everyone. It's not been even a week since the Operation Sindoor ceasefire. It happened on what, 10th of May. It was confirmed on the 12th of May. Today we are sitting on the 20th of May. But still, there is a lot happening on the back end, especially between India and the US. The media hasn't really focused on this issue in its larger context as they ought to. And I thought I'll just bring you up to date with certain events that I have kind of put them in a certain sequence so that we can make sense of what Trump is up to and what's he doing. Please remember, Donald Trump was elected in January this year, as in he was sworn in as president. He was elected in November last year. And there were a lot of great expectations from the Indian public and even the Indian government because the relationship with Biden administration wasn't great. There were a lot of issues, and who can forget the issue that India had since the G20 in 2023? And there was this whole Nijjar-Pannu issue where there was an allegation that India had tried to assassinate Pannu in the US and had assassinated Nijjar in Canada. Now that was like unprecedented kind of drama, and it persisted even until the last day of Biden's administration, which was in January this year. Of course, it was kind of buried with Indian government saying, "Oh, we have investigated, we've found nothing," and there was one guy who was arrested, and the US has kept quiet since. So there was a lot of expectation when Donald Trump came in that the relationship between India and the US will improve because it had really gone downhill during the Biden era. Now, you can see that this started on September 19th, 2023, which was a week after India's hosting of G20 in New Delhi in 2023, and that kind of snowballed for almost a full year before the fires were put out. But surely that derailed the relationship. Now, the thing is that I wanted to mention this to set the context that not everything was okay in the Indian US relationship, even before Donald Trump was sworn in. In fact, just before Donald Trump's first term ended in 2020, in 2019, India had revoked Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir, and that had drawn a lot of bad press in the US, especially the liberal media, and they were jumping up and down about a so called NRC happening in Assam, which all of it was untrue, all fake news, the same fake news that Trump called out when he was attacked with it. But it seems that things haven't gone as well between the Indo US relationship during Trump's era as was expected. So I was just thinking about what's happening, and I have raised a few questions, and let's see what the answers come out to be, basis the sequence of events. So I was thinking that why is Donald Trump behaving in the way he is when he's called India the country with the highest tariffs? He's talked about equating India and Pakistan. He's brought out the K word, the Kashmir word, which anyone in the US foreign policy setup will tell him that, hey, I mean, that's a real red line for India. And he's crossed it multiple times just in May. In the last 15 days, he's made many remarks, including the one about pulling out Apple from India. So there is something going on, and we ought to understand where it is coming from. So I thought there were three possible reasons as to why Donald Trump is doing this. Some people say that this is about his personal business dealing. There was a deal he struck with Pakistan. He was gifted a jet by Qatar, so he really likes to kind of get feted, and the Indians haven't done that. So that's one possible reason that he's striking out against India on his own because of his own personal dealings, especially business dealings, where this crypto deal has, tipped the balance against India in favor of Pakistan. The second possible reason is that This is just optics and a kind of negotiating tactics that Trump is well known for, which is to get the best deal out of India. There is a Indo-US trade deal under negotiation, so he's using all of these tactics to get the best or the most out of the deal. Now, this is a second possibility. Then there is a third possibility. So, is this like a containment strategy that the US has decided that India is too independent, is growing too fast, and cannot be allowed to become a pole in the region or in the world, and therefore there has to be some sort of a boundary put around it, and therefore all these comments are a part of that strategy. These are the three possibilities. Let's explore this with a simple chronology and a sequence of events which will tell us a little bit about what's happening. Now, in June 2024, now this has been well reported that there was a Pakistani firm which went to Maxar and bought some pictures of Pahalgam. Now, this is 1 year before all of this has happened. In fact, the attack happened on April 22nd. They were planning this in June 2024. In fact, they were executing the plan. After all, buying the pictures means that you're already uh, planning out the nitty gritties, and therefore, it's possible that this was in the works for a long time, which would then mean that this is not about Trump's personal whims or business dealings. Anyhow, let's move forward. Uh, Now, US has been under tremendous uh, pressure. There has been inflation because of COVID and lot of spending by the Federal Reserve and the government. There are currency pressures. People are selling their treasury bonds. People are trying to get alternate currencies. There's this so-called BRICS currency under discussions, though everyone says it's not. Ukraine has really, the war in Ukraine has drained a lot of resources. The US debt is really high. There is a lot of political polarization in the US. So the US superpower status is really under a bit of pressure, and it's kind of coming up apart at seams. It's not what it used to be. Now, this is the context under which uh, Donald Trump was fighting the election against Joe Biden, and he was they tried to assassinate him twice, and once he got his the bullet grazed his ear, and so that's how polarized the environment was. So I've just covered this. uh, then Donald Trump got elected on January 2025, and then there was a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump, and there were a couple of calls. January 20th is when Trump was elected. So this happened within a month of him getting elected. And at that time, if you remember, there was all kinds of things going on with Elon Musk heading the Doge, focus on spending cuts and all of that. Amidst all of this, there was this meeting between Modi and Trump. However, within that month, by February end, Donald Trump, Donald Trump had released and approved the $400 million funds for upgrade of Pakistan's F-16 fleet. This was proposed by Biden and approved by Trump. Now, again, does it appear to you like Donald Trump is acting out on his own personal business interest? I wouldn't think so. During the meeting with Narendra Modi on February 12, 2025, US repeated the offer of F-35 to India again. Now, this is a very interesting offer, and it's something that a lot of people in India, some lobbies in India are really happy about. But you know what the offer was, and I've heard from many sources that the offer was that we will sell you the F-35 today, and we will deliver it to you in 2029, 30, 31, 32. And during this time, you will ease out your Sukhois, and you will also connect all your platforms to F-35, which means you will have to ease out all Russian platforms. So this is what the deal was. In other words, we are going to hand over our Air Force to the Americans because F-35 cannot be flown unless the US approves. However, let's move forward. Now, in early April, you're aware that the whole Trump tariffs issue was coming up. He announced some tariffs. Indian farmer was excluded, but not much else. So India was brushed with China and the others, and a lot of high tariffs were targeted against India. Donald Trump repeatedly targeted India specifically, even more than he targeted China, even though all of this is supposed to be a trade war between US and China. But when it came to speaking on stage, he targeted India even more than he targeted China. On April 10th, Indian government was working behind the scenes, and they got a India-US trade deal negotiation started, and the terms of the deal were agreed upon, as in the contours of how this will be negotiated. So by 10th of April, things were pretty okay. I mean, yes, and Trump also retreated uh, on his tariffs, and he kind of paused it for 90 days. So then what happened? There was a Modi, Mohammed bin Salman, and Vance triangle. Now, remember, the trip to Saudi Arabia by Narendra Modi was long overdue. Now, remember, Saudi Arabia is a major exporter of petroleum products. The US dollar is hedged really against the petrol. It's called the petrodollar for a reason. Because if everyone purchases oil and petrol in dollars, then basically it becomes the reserve currency. This visit by Modi was much awaited. There were a lot of deals, including defense deals, that were to be signed. However, because the Pahalgam attack happened during the visit, even before Modi could meet him, he had to. A lot of the meetings got cancelled or they were abbreviated, and at the same time, JD Vance was in India on like a semi-formal visit, even though he had some official engagements as well. His wife is Indian. Now, Pahalgam happened on April 22nd, and uh, on 28th of April, Donald Trump signed a crypto deal with the WLF, a US decentralized finance firm, and it is led by the Trump family, and they own about 60%. And this agreement is basically integrating blockchain technology into Pakistan's financial infrastructure. Now, Pakistan might be a small country, but it still is a 400, 350, $400 billion country. And it does have a lot of financial flows, including remittances from the US and other places. And integrating crypto into their basically what would be their Federal Reserve is a pretty interesting deal and must be very lucrative. No one knows what the contours of the deal are. This happened 6 days after Pahalgam attack. Very interesting. Uh, I'm going to jump forward and back a little bit. So on 7th of April, 7th of May, India launches the Operation Sindoor in response to the Pahalgam attack. Uh, uh, this went on for like 4 days. On 7th of May, there was a landing of a US Air Force team in Dhaka. Now, this team is supposed to travel to the Myanmar Bangladesh border and perhaps help the rebels in the South Myanmar region who are fighting against the Myanmar army and who is supported by China. All very nice. But the timing is very interesting. Huh? May 7th, when India was striking on its western side, the American team was landing on the eastern side. And remember, Yunus was placed into Dhaka on August 5th, 2024. And this was allegedly a deep state job from the US, and Sheikh Hasina is still hiding in India, and therefore the government on India's eastern border is now not very friendly to India. We will cover Bangladesh at a later stage in more detail, but just keep this in mind. Then just going to summarize a few things. So there was a lot of flip-flop statements regarding Pahalgam. Now, remember, JD Vance once he said, "Oh, we don't have anything to do with this. Let the two parties resolve it." Then he said, "We are very concerned about the escalation." Then Trump said, "Oh, they will sort it out. They've been fighting for 1,000 years." I don't know who taught that history to him, but whatever. Now, the question is why there was a lot of flip flop? Why were they talking in multiple voices? Is a good question to ask. And then you have to understand what has happened just after 12th. So Trump goes to Saudi Arabia, he went to UAE, to Qatar, and he says he got big investments, maybe just treasury bonds that will be reinvested in the US, and some of it will be used to purchase some US defense items. Anyways, that money was never going to come back to these Gulf states. They were just getting the interest, and they are not in a position to withdraw, unlike a Japan or a China. So this has been reframed as investment for a 0.3% recession at a, let's say, at a $25 trillion economy, which is 6 trillion in a quarter. So 6 trillion is about uh, 1% is 60. So you're looking at 20-30 billion dollar gap. So he's got enough money. So Trump is hoping that this investment will cover up any uh, GDP hit that is going to happen in the later parts of the year, because he needs to have a war chest of 300 to 500 billion dollars to invest in the US on home soil, to cover up all the consumption that will not happen because of high tariffs. Anyhow, so instead of Modi, the guy who was signing all the deals was Mr. Trump. He would have signed them anyways, but a lot of the deals that were supposed to be talked up when India was there, including defense deals, haven't happened. So after that, since he was in the Gulf and so on, he's been criticizing India's high tariffs. He has commended Pakistan. He's talked about how brilliant they are. I'm sure he must have seen something which we haven't in the last 80 years. He's urged Tim Cook, the Apple CEO, to reconsider plans to expand in India. Where were you, Donald, when Apple was expanding in China? It's a question to ask. Of course, it's Tim's choice wherever he wants to take his business. Then there was a conditionality in the IMF loan given to Pakistan, which kind of symbolically says, "Oh, you have to do X, Y, Z, otherwise your loan next tranche will not be given to you." And the trade agreement with India is not moving forward, from what I'm told. And a shipment of mangoes, a very small shipment, was thrown away at a US port in favor of a Pakistani shipment of mangoes. So now, I started by saying that we ought to uh, really understand, where is Trump coming from? Is he coming from a personal angle? Is he coming from a trade angle? Or is he coming from a strategic containment of India angle? So these were the three questions I asked, right? Now, what do you think? Which one makes more sense? Is this erratic Trump? Is this greedy Trump? Or is this strategic Trump? So, in my opinion, the answer is this. Ladies and gentlemen, the US is out to contain India with, in however, whatever way is possible. And that is why they've been repeating the F-35 offer. Once you understand the details of this deal, you will scratch your head as to which prime minister, which defense minister, which air force chief is going to agree to the deal like that. India has already invested billions of dollars, or at least hundreds of millions of dollars, in building AMCA, the advanced uh, aircraft that India is building, which is supposed to be the fifth generation aircraft. India is also building Tejas Mark II, which is supposed to be at least 4.5 generation, and a replacement for a Mirage 2000 or even Rafale at some point. So why would India buy F-35, which has a checkered record and which has many problems, even though its stealth doesn't carry much armament, and therefore, why will India purchase a aircraft which will be inefficient and the conditionalities of which are going to completely finish off Indian manufacturing of defense equipment? I really do not understand the American strategy because, from my understanding, unless they were ready to give India full TOT, which is transfer of technology, manufacture it in India, which has been the Indian demand. So India has demanded. So whenever US has said, okay, buy our F-35s, we've said, okay, manufacture them here, transfer technology, we are all for it. If that doesn't happen, we are not going to buy F-35. In fact, the Rafale deal is stuck because the Dassault Aviation is not willing to share the source code, which is needed to integrate some Indian weapons like BrahMos and others. And therefore, I'm starting to think that India will go ahead with a Su-57, the Russian fifth generation plane, or just not go for any of these and go for a domestic option, even though that can be painful in the interim. But as the last, what, 15-20 days have shown us, India is well, more than capable of defending itself and giving anyone a bloody nose. So if anyone thinks that India is ill-equipped, I think they are not understanding the India that they're looking at and they're going to face up to, including the Chinese. We've seen how the Chinese equipment has failed, irrespective of all the Western and other media which has tried to spread a lot of fake news, just like they did with Donald Trump when they wanted to not have him film the White House. Anyhow, this was Summit from TalksonGround. I would like to know what you think. Which of these three options you think is correct? Why is Trump acting so erratically and so uh, irrationally, I would say? And also, do share this video around with your friends, like the content, and subscribe to the channel. We will come back with more interesting videos and views and conversations and podcasts. Good night. This was Summit from Talks on Ground. Bye bye.